now is a really exciting point in time for being a tech entrepreneur, because you always have to be operating in a moment of disruption if you really want to do something big, right? So when I came to Silicon Valley, the World Wide Web had just happened, right? And Web 2.0, that wave was starting when I started my career, and people rode that wave, Google, etc., right? And then there's this kind of wave in like 2007, right? The emergence of the mobile phone and Android and iPhone, and there's a huge new disruption wave that really reset industries, right? So you had companies like WhatsApp and Uber, et cetera, being built, which have changed the world in many ways. And I think now the thing that's exciting for me about AI is that I think we're in the first inning, right? I think that there's this amazing disruption happening in chaos. Let's call it chaos. Now, disruption people use a lot. I think it's kind of a dated way. It is chaos. It is total chaos. Like nobody knows what's happening, what's what, right? A lot of people sound smart about it, but I think every day something changes, right? And I think that's like a perfect atmosphere for entrepreneurship, because for that, therefore, what happens is as a young company, young company can disrupt incumbents, right? Because incumbents are trying to find their footing.
Wonderful. Well, Manish, it is so nice to have you here with me at 20 Minute Leaders. Thank you so much for spending this next 20 minutes with me. How are you?
Good. It was great to be on, Michael. I'm a big fan. I know you're prolific in these episodes. I feel like you're over 1,000 at this point, I'm guessing, but it's awesome to be on the show.
Well, really nice to have you here. So you're in SF, I'm in Tel Aviv, and I'm really excited to get to know you better. You've done such awesome things throughout your career. I'm really looking forward to unraveling, the bits behind the big, the big labels on these great places you've been at, from Stanford to Google and so many more, and the work that you're doing today. So again, thank you very much for being here, Manish. Tell me a little bit about, yourself in your words, and what's been really exciting for you in your journey.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like I've hit the lottery many times in life, if you think about my journey. So my family's from East Africa, Uganda. I was born in the UK. I grew up most of my life in rural Kentucky in very kind of, farms, tobacco fields, that sort of thing. Moved around the US a lot. Was lucky enough to go to Stanford like you. I got a scholarship, and it changed my life. My freshman year was 1999, kind of getting to Silicon Valley right after the dot-com bust. Just an amazing time to be in Silicon Valley. It kind of had arrived on the world stage, and my eyes opened to the power of technology. After Stanford, I got lucky again in life. I joined Google in the early days, right before the IPO. I was one of the early product people there, and there's just so many wonderful, incredible people to learn from when you're, 22 years old, and it's just this amazing juggernaut. It wasn't even a thing yet. It was a good company, but it wasn't this global juggernaut yet. And so it was given outsized responsibility relative to probably my capability, but it was amazing to go and build all these products and work with amazing people, including one of the founders very closely. And then in my late 20s, I became a venture capitalist, accidental venture capitalist. I wasn't like you. I was not very thoughtful about my career. I kind of just randomly ended up in venture and just fell in love with the craft. I think the industry has to evolve a lot, but working with entrepreneurs every day was just so amazing. And I just, now I've been in venture about 14 years. I started my own firm, almost now 4 or 5 years ago, Nava. We're a Series A firm based in Silicon Valley, New York. And then the other part of my life is, about 10 years ago, I was invited back to Stanford, and I joined the faculty there, and I teach in the School of Engineering and Design School. And that's just been so wonderful to give back to the university I've gotten so much from. So that, in a nutshell, is a little bit about me.
And incredible things to unpack. You said that you feel like you won the lottery multiple times.
Yeah.
Let's say dig into those, and what are those moments that make you feel like, okay, I mean, these places seem great, and joining Google before the IPO, and Stanford and the design school, and getting into venture and now having your own venture firm, on the paper they seem great. There's also a lot of challenges with them, but what is it really about these experiences that make you say, wow, I mean, this is really foundational and formative for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I've realized in my journey and being in all these different places, different walks of life is uh, people are the same everywhere. And, they're brilliant people in Silicon Valley. They're brilliant people in East Africa. They're brilliant people in Kentucky. There's not so great people in Kentucky, not so great people in Africa, not so great people in Silicon Valley. And I feel like from the beginning, being able to be surrounded by just like, amazing family that was supportive, that kind of helped me realize who I am and the potential of what you could be. I think about that a lot because I have a young daughter as well. And like, how you raise somebody matters so much more, I think, than the schooling or accolades or anything like that. So I think from the early age, having that from 0 to 18, and I think that there's so many in Silicon Valley, going to Stanford opened the world, my eyes to the world of technology, right? Calculus is calculus, whatever college, university you go to, right? It's the same stuff. But being at Stanford, it was being around these people that I think that had this idea of like 2 people, 3 people in a garage can build a little bit of software that can change the world. And it's okay to try. Like winning is trying, and kind of really understanding that. I think some cultures don't allow for that, like trying is failure if you don't win, and so it's very conservative. And I feel like that ethos of entrepreneurship, pushing yourself to imagine what can be. And I think that was also kind of exciting for me. There's a very different world where, you could just go collect accolades, as many kids from Stanford otherwise do, and end up becoming investment bankers or this and this, and just you keep stacking up all these things on your resume, but does it really resonate with who you are as a person? So I feel like early in life, I was fortunate to find technology, and technology found me, and that was really my language. I really do believe that products change and define the world. Sort of like, there's this kind of Churchill said this thing, the architecture shapes our lives and sort of how we think about the world. I think today's architecture is products. And the products that we interact with, whether it's your Android phone, your iPhone, your Mac, really do have a significant impact on how we see our lives today. So all of that was sort of lucky to be around those things and kind of find kind of my people and my language.
Mm-hmm. You're talking, alluding a lot to the creativity and the ingenuity of creation of building products. You've gotten a chance to be a part of, some of the creation of some of the most meaningful solutions that have given space for what's happening today. What's happening today in your eyes, in the world that we're living in, the agentic era?
Oh yeah,
That's happening. What's happening here in comparison to, I guess, your experience in '99, and what's changed, what stays the same, what's augmented, what's missing?
absolutely. I mean, I think now is a really exciting point in time for being a tech entrepreneur, because you always have to be operating in a moment of disruption if you really want to do something big, right? So when I came to Silicon Valley, the World Wide Web had just happened, right? And Web 2.0, that wave was starting when I started my career, and people rode that wave, Google, etc., right? And then there's this kind of wave in like 2007, right? The emergence of the mobile phone and Android and iPhone, and there's a huge new disruption wave that really reset industries, right? So you had companies like WhatsApp and Uber, etc., being built, which have changed the world in many ways. And I think now the thing that's exciting for me about AI is that I think we're in the first inning, right? I think that there's this amazing disruption happening in chaos. Let's call it chaos. Now, disruption people use a lot. I think it's kind of a dated way. It is chaos. It is total chaos. Like nobody knows what's happening, what's what, right? A lot of people sound smart about it, but I think every day something changes, right? And I think that's like a perfect atmosphere for entrepreneurship, because for that, therefore, what happens is as a young company, young company can disrupt incumbents, right? Because incumbents are trying to find their footing, and their technology allows you to have leverage in a new and exciting way that you could never have had before and grow really fast. And so all those types of things allow for an opening of the aperture for entrepreneurs to do something great. And I think that's, you can never time when you're born, right? Going back to this idea of being lucky in life. I'm really lucky in life. I was born when I was born, that like my father and my family had the ability to move from India to Uganda, etc. Right? If I was born 100 years ago, that would have been tough. Who knows 100 years from now? And so I think as an entrepreneur, timing is so important, right? And that's that luck of timing, right? Like the fact that you're born when you were born, and you're able to take advantage of all this AI stuff. I think it's really exciting. So I think the wave right now, this chaos of AI, is amazing for entrepreneurs.
I couldn't agree more. And timing is everything, and it feels like we're living in a time, and we're not the only ones having this discussion. Many are having the discussion of, what does this agentic era mean for the integration of human computer interaction. I spent a ton of time at my time at Stanford on human computer interaction. It became almost an obsession of mine to consider how are we going to interface with these tools. And I remember over the last decade watching from the early days of the assistant of Google Assistant, and I was watching my father speak to the assistant in the early days, almost religiously, and replacing his behavior from text based experience, even though almost nobody else was doing it, because it was still a lot of friction. It wasn't that good yet, but he realized that was going to be the new experience, and he was already bought into that idea. So the way that humans behave and talk, move, and experience is changing. And I want to hear a little bit about your experience. I mean, you teach in the design school, the introduction to human values in design.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the biggest questions we have today.
Oh, yeah.
What are human values in designing these new systems that we're building? And just a week ago, to finish the thought, or 2 weeks ago, Bessemer sent out their a big report on verticalized AI with a big doubling down on voice, a whole new modality of interaction. So Manish, I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I don't think people know what the future is. I think a lot of people can write a lot of reports and things, right? But I who knows, right? The way I think about it is maybe one more layer of abstraction. I think the best technologies disappear in our daily life. They become the fabric of how we do things, and you don't see them as technology anymore, right? So if we look, let's take a historical look, right? The steam engine, when it was invented, wow, that's technology. Now it's a train, right? The television set, right? Back in like the 40s and 50s, that's technology. Now it's just the TV. You don't think of it as technology, right? Like a mobile phone, right? Like my daughter will not think of a mobile phone as technology, even if they exist anymore. Who knows, right? But like that's not technology. It's just the way you do things, right? I was lucky enough to be part of the team that built Google Maps in the early days, and I remember growing up, I would look at maps on a globe, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm a small point on the globe," and that's cool. But now maps, if you think of most young people, they think of Google Maps on your iPhone or your Android phone as a map. It's not technology. It's just the map, right? So it's changing a lot. I think the best ones disappear into how we do things. And so when I think about all this agentic stuff, right now, I think it's all novel and interesting, but I think it will just become the way we do something, like it won't be like whether it's an agent doing it on my behalf or whatever. It'll just be about how do I get the task done I want to get done. And by the way, a lot of the tasks I want to get done will just be done for me. I won't even be thinking about that anymore, right? I won't be thinking about how do I make the order to like buy some food or whatever. It will just like happen, and I think that's really the most exciting part of it, because the question for me becomes, as we start to deploy these great technologies and they become part of our daily life, do we get time back? Where do we put that time? Because at the end of the day, I think the best technologies are solving for latent human needs. And that's one of the things I talk a lot about in my class at Stanford. I think oftentimes we spend a lot of time when we think about technologies around thinking about, is something feasible? What's the cost, etc. We talk about compute all day long with AI, right? We talk a lot about business value, that kind of thing, right? But I think the thing we don't talk enough about is the human side. And what is that latent need? What is that deep need that you're kind of addressing? It's not just about saving me time, but is it about bringing me happiness? Is it about entertaining me? Is it about finding something else that's more meaningful? The best companies, I think, really spend time thinking about that, and like they solve big problems that way, because then it becomes very sticky, I think if you don't spend time thinking about latent human needs and you just do superficial things, it's harder to become a generational company.
No, I really hear what you're saying, and I think it's amazing to me how we're in a position that, on one hand, we see a dramatic shift in our frame of thinking from how do we get things done to now saying, okay, we're going to get it done in a really seamless way. Now it's a question of how do we. It's going to be a non-issue. It's not about the how, it's about the what. Exactly. And you're taking it a step further, and you're saying we're already in a position where those companies that are simply solving those from how to what on the
Mhm.
day-to-day stuff, that's okay.
Yeah.
But the really interesting companies today are already ones thinking, okay, from these set of companies, can I distinguish the ones that are going to drive a really important behavior change? And you're alluding to some significant, I think, values-driven changes that resonate obviously with how you think what do you think entrepreneurs should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think these companies that are being built today the ones that will last, be the ones that are really students of the human behavior side, that they build new habits, right? They're thinking deeply about, what is the problem that, not that I just need to solve today, but is really something that can last over periods of time. And I think about habits a lot because I think whether it's an enterprise company or consumer company, I think it's all the same. I think it's actually about, at the end of the day, there's a human being building with your tooling or your infrastructure or a consumer, and are they going to build a habit on it, right? Are you making their life easier? Even if it's an infrastructure company, are you making that easier to deploy something, right? A dev tool, etc. That layers of abstraction, because at the end of the day, they want to just go to lunch. They want to build something cool, right? Everybody does, right? They don't want to become a kind of a product manager, understanding the coolness of your technology. I think consumer companies too. I don't really want to understand like all the buttons and filters and stuff. I just want to share a cool piece of content with my buddy. Like make it fun, make it interesting, and then like let's go, let's move on, right? And I think if you think about that, those are the best companies that really are sticky.
Yeah, no, and I love that. It's really about the distilling what is the part about the product that creates the value. It's
Exactly.
not the extra features, the bells and whistles. It's
Totally.
about what am I trying to get done? Can
Yeah.
you help me get it done? And do we have now an opportunity to get it done in a more fun way that drives me more happiness, more value? And just getting it done is not going to be enough
Yeah.
because that's going to be a available for everybody. So,
Exactly.
Manish, I'm excited to hear you spend a lot of time, meeting a lot of companies and
Yeah.
thinking about AI and thinking from a design perspective. What are the types of things that you are really excited about today?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Really exciting.
I think that we're in such early days of AI. And that as a whole for me is super exciting because people say this idea of like, oh, this Cambrian explosion. So many different kind of creatures are being built all over the place. And I love that. I love that. I think that, the fact that we even looked at like DeepSeek from a couple months ago and it shook the market cap of Nvidia, one of the most valuable companies in the world, right? It's kind of crazy. This random noise from China can like shake this company. It's like, wow. So we really are in these early days. The thing that I think, what I'm excited about is I feel like the last 3 years have been about infrastructure, building the tooling, allowing people to now do the really exciting stuff, which I think is building the consumer companies. The layers of abstraction have happened. So now a young student out of Stanford who maybe is like semi-technical, but not a PhD in computer science, can really take advantage of some of these agentic tools or AI infrastructure and build something very, very quickly and iterate. And that student, that young person, is going to be much more focused on solving the problem from a human lens than somebody who might be more in the weeds on the infrastructure, right? That's important too. There'll be value created there, right? Think about companies like Databricks, et cetera. Those are good companies. Those are old companies. That layer's been building for a long time. So I think where the most of the value will accrue will be this pendulum swinging from enterprise and infrastructure over the next, call it 3 years, to these consumer experiences, which now you can build very, very quickly. We saw this pattern, by the way, years ago, with the advent of AWS and the cloud, right? And making it very easy for people that you can build a company very leanly. You don't have to be as technical as you would have had to been 10 years ago to like rack servers and go in a data center, etc. You just a few lines of code and oh my gosh, there we go. I can deploy a service to the world globally and it scales. Wow, that's exciting. And I think that's just going to speed up more and more. So I'm really excited about this new type of company that's going to be built.
The barrier to entry is just getting lower. The opportunities are just getting broader and deeper, and
Absolutely.
it's a builder's world now.
It is. It is.
Whoever's willing to get their hands dirty.
Totally. And what I'm really excited about, which is maybe somewhat contrarian for venture capitalists, is I think there'll be companies built that touch billions of people that will never require venture funding. It will be very small, lean teams of people, call it 5, 6 people that can build services very quickly, that scale globally very quickly, and never will require the kind of venture capital investments that we've historically seen. And I think that's amazing for the ecosystem. I think it's going to push the limits of like how people think about products.
Absolutely, and it could be that we will experience a shift in where what are the models of building a company in the research layer, in the
Yes.
infrastructure layer, in the services layer, and then the application layer, and we may be on the brink of a big transformation of what does it mean to have access to building a company in those higher layers. I don't know about the lower ones. I think those are still
Yeah.
pretty difficult to build, but certainly the higher ones, definitely. Manish, I really want to thank you for your time. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a privilege and an honor. So thank you so much.
It's been so much fun, Michael. Really appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much.